Hi guys, the current strike action and future strike action, when covered by the media, tends to focus rightly or wrongly on train drivers and signal operators. But while those may be at the middle or higher end of the pay scale, many people taking industrial action are at the sharp end of the cost of living crisis. The RMT Trade Union's Assistant General Secretary Eddie Dempsey spoke to Joe Media about one group of workers that are going on strike: cleaners. These are people who are fundamentally important to the operation of stations and both to the health and well-being of workers and the travelling public alike. They are usually given the worst contracts available, and many are relying on food banks to feed themselves and their families. Have a listen to what Eddie had to say.
They have. So this is the biggest cleaner strike in this country that I know of. We've got cleaners across 13 separate train cleaning contracts who have voted to take industrial action. We're demanding for them an immediate increase in their pay. We want at least £15 an hour. We want a sick pay scheme for a lot of these workers. They've got no sick pay arrangements and they've worked through a pandemic and find themselves in a position where if they do fall sick, they can't afford to pay their rent. So they either come into work sick and make their colleagues sick, or they use their annual leave entitlement because they can't afford to take sick pay. And what happens then, particularly in metropolitan areas like London, a lot of these workers are not from England. They've got families back home, wherever that might be. And so that means they can't use their annual leave to go and see their families. And sometimes that can be immediate family, like children. And that's just not right. So they've got to have a basic standard of sick pay. And we're determined to see that they achieve that. And we also want to get them travel benefits. So a lot of these cleaners have to pay to travel on the trains that they clean. That's a disgrace. All railway workers get a version of travel, even if it's only for the company they work for. And we think that should be extended to these cleaners. And ultimately, we want them brought back in-house. We don't think they should be employed by some of these spiv outsourcing companies. They should be employed by the companies who are profiting from their labour, and there should be a direct responsibility to them from the companies that employ them. So really pleased. It's not easy. These are really low paid workers. They're going to be going through the mill. A lot of them have been in strike action for a number of months already in the south, and they've taken sustained action. So I'm really, really proud of them. We're going to get the reps up next week. We're going to have a discussion about what they want to do, and that will no doubt be naming more strike action for cleaners.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love this guy. Now, a very important point to raise here is that many of these workers are not registered with the RMT Union. So this is the RMT Union going out and defending or trying to get rights, not even defending the rights, but trying to get rights, benefits for workers who are not part of the RMT Union, people who are working for agencies. And as Eddie talked about here, he wants to bring this work in-house. The cleaners used to be employed by the companies. Now they're employed by agencies, and these agencies obviously are taking a cut from whatever income these workers receive. And the conditions that they work in are much lower than an ordinary worker who would be a member of a union. Now, he mentioned a number of things here. £15 an hour. I don't think that will be achievable, but of course you have to aim high and then negotiate down to something that's acceptable to both sides. But definitely, you have to go for something like £15 an hour. With the cost of living crisis, how are people supposed to survive? How is it acceptable that people who are working, relying on universal credit and going to food banks, it's completely unacceptable. He talked here also about which is something that many people seem to forget about, especially for workers like this, a sick pay scheme, so that they don't need to use their annual leave to take time off work because they're unwell. And he said here how many of them were working during the pandemic. These people were on the front line. Many people were able to stay at home. That was a good thing. But if you're cleaning a train station or a carriage, you can't stay at home. You have to come into the workplace. And something that blew my mind as well here, that they have to pay to travel on the trains. Now, Eddie talked about how general workers, normally, if you're a driver or an operator or work in a station, you get, and you're part of a union, you are exempt from that. You don't have to pay to travel to work. And of course, this is something that should be brought in, should have been brought in before, but it should be brought in for these cleaners as well. So the RMT are doing a great job here, and I really hope that they are successful. And a lot of this work needs to be brought back in-house. It shouldn't be outsourced to these agencies who are not actually doing anything. They're just moving workers around and taking a cut. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.